Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Before we jump into the business at hand, I'd just like to thank all of you for supporting my new podcast, Unsolved But Not Forgotten. I've gotten a lot of feedback already about the podcast from a lot of you, and I am really happy that you seem to be enjoying it. So we're going to have a lot more going on, and not every case will be 3 or 4 episodes like our first case. I plan on doing about 3 episodes a week. If we're deep diving into a case like we are with West Mesa, then you can expect more episodes, obviously, to tell that story. But in between us telling that story, I'll be doing other shorter missing person stories or strange disappearance stories or unsolved murder mysteries wedged in between. So we'll be working on a lot of different stories for you, a lot of different unsolved cases, et cetera, et cetera. And the plan is to have a variety of different sorts of unsolved cases or mysteries that have really piqued my interest throughout the years. And there's going to be ones about people that have gone missing in the wilderness without a trace, national parks, along the lines of the missing 411 stories. Obviously, we'll be talking about people who have just vanished in cities or were about their regular daily business and never came home again. There are so many stories like that, and there are a lot of obscure stories like that. So while we'll be talking about some of the more well-known missing cases, I'm going to sprinkle in some of the less-known cases as well as we wind our way through the corridors of the unsolved. So I'm really excited about that. It's a nice change up from the Epstein show here, and the real, I don't know, it's like cerebral torture almost sometimes, reading about the just misery that went on with the Jeffrey Epstein criminal enterprise. So it's nice to talk about a little something else every now and then, and it is going to be exciting moving forward. So if there are any stories that you think would be interesting for us to talk about on the podcast, even if it's like a story from your hometown or something very obscure that most people don't know about, something that has always interested you, whatever it may be, we'll talk about whatever, right? Any sort of crazy mystery. Hell, I'll talk about Bigfoot if that's what you guys want to talk about, right? So anyway, I'm really excited to move forward with that new project. And I also have a couple of other things in the works. A couple of other things that I think you guys will find pretty interesting after this election. So I won't go any further into that right now, but I'll just leave you with that little cliffhanger that there is certainly more on the way on different topics from your favorite bearded loudmouth. All right, folks, so let's move on to the business of the day, shall we? Now, recently, we were talking about the International Peace Institute and Terje Rod-Larsen, who was the president and the CEO of that group, and how he received the money from Epstein, the $650,000. Well, we have an update on that story now. Remember, when this first broke, it was the Norwegian newspaper DN that broke this as well. So let's make sure we give DN their props for their fantastic work here. But it just goes to show you again that when we talk about Jeffrey Epstein and his associates and his criminal enterprise and all of that other stuff, it's not something that is localized. This is an international problem. This is a serious problem. And this is a problem that needs to be addressed. And one of the first and best ways to do that is to dig into what the FinCEN files revealed and start chasing these guys down and these women down financially, because those are the ties that bind. And I know I've said it before on here several times, but do you really think that the government wanted to put Al Capone away for tax evasion? Hell no, they wanted to put him away for murder. But at the end of the day, you put these people behind bars for whatever you can get the conviction for. This article is from CNN.com. Headline: Epstein donations force resignation at International Peace Organization. Authored by Richard Roth. The president of an international think tank has resigned following revelations that he accepted a loan from accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and secured $650,000 in donations from foundations linked to Epstein for the Peace Organization. And now remember, we got the Rudd situation down there in Australia. Now again, for my Australian listeners out there, I don't know anything about the inner workings of your political system, and I would never be so arrogant to make pretend I did. But what I do know is a crooked, dirty politician when I see one. And while Mr. Rudd might not be the prototypical crooked politician, he certainly fits the bill considering the way he took the money from Epstein, the other money from Epstein, the lying about it. That all points to being pretty damn crooked, okay? Now, that doesn't, again, I'm not saying that he's better or any worse than any other politician in Australia because I don't know. I will say this, though. I can tell when somebody is up to their neck in ill-gotten gains. And anyone getting $650,000 large from Jeffrey Epstein is drowning in them. The International Peace Institute, based across the street from the United Nations, does that shock anybody? Am I the only one that sees how terrible the United Nations is for the world? It is the biggest group of blowhards since the League of Nations. These people get up there and they bloviate and they try and make us think that we should take them seriously when they have people like Saudi Arabia on the Human Rights Council. I'm not one of these people that has like this rage against Saudi Arabia like other people, but let's be real, okay? They shouldn't be on the Human Rights Council. And the UN does that shit all the time. It's a joke of a body. It's a joke of an institution. And frankly, I wish they would leave the United States. Announced that diplomat Terje Rod-Larsen had apologized to the Institute's board and resigned as president and CEO on Thursday. Again, look, when we're talking about these powerful people like this clown here, Terje Rod-Larsen, and in America we're talking about like Wexner and Dubin and Leon Black. Look, these guys are all going to be forced into these decisions eventually. As more information comes out about what occurred, as more truth is spilled about what really went on with Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts, it's going to be a lot harder for these people to stay in their positions of power. And besides putting them in prison, the most destructive thing that you could do to these people is to rip them from their perch of high society. Their narcissism can't take it. The IPI said it was unaware of the Epstein transactions. Of course it was. Nobody knew. We had no idea. We woke up one morning and there was $650,000 large in the bank account. We didn't ask no questions. We just spent the money. What does that even mean? What do you mean you don't know? Was some low-level intern slid one by you? That's a nice surprise to wake up to, huh? 650,000 boxes of ZD in the bank. Larsen was a key broker of the 1990 Oslo's Middle East peace accords and represented the UN on several peace assignments around the globe. All of these people are the same, right? Oh yeah, I do these great things out in public. I am part of the Oslo Peace Accords. I am part of this charity or that charity. Meanwhile, you're sitting around breaking bread with Epstein, laughing at his jokes, taking his money, and helping him reunite himself with a piece of so-called polite society. So I don't care about what you did at the shitty-ass UN. I don't care, okay? What I care about is that everybody who was associated with Jeffrey Epstein in an intimate manner, who received money from Jeffrey Epstein, I care that those people are investigated. That's it. And we're going to keep going. My fat mouth is going to keep moving until that occurs. The United Nations announced Friday it has withdrawn from its role as an honorary chair of the IPI following the resignation of Rod-Larsen. Oh, well, maybe the UN should just withdraw from the world then. How many times has the UN been accused of heinous acts against children while they're supposedly there as peacekeepers? Just take a quick Google, folks. The UN is not this austere body. It is not a body that I want representing me anywhere in the world. In fact, I feel like they are limp-wristed, ineffective, and past their due date. Citing the office's independence and status, UN spokesman Stephanie Dujarric said the UN Secretary General, after a review, has decided not to serve in any capacity in the governance of any outside entity. Well, they'll say, oh, it's any outside entity. But meanwhile, what they're not telling you is they served on this board with Jeffrey Epstein, the UN. Or how about the time that Ghislaine Maxwell spoke at the UN? Look, the UN is such a shithole. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep going in hard on them. I'm sure some of you out there like the UN or whatever, and that's cool. I'm not telling you shouldn't. But from my perspective and my investigations and research and dealings with the UN on a personal level, I'm just not a big fan of the way they conduct themselves. There's no accountability, and they think that they are these great arbiters of what is right and what is wrong in sovereign nations, and I'm not a fan of it. The Institute is an independent organization that promotes UN causes. It was founded 50 years ago with the assistance of former UN Secretary General U Thant. IPI Board Chairman Kevin Rudd, the former Australian Prime Minister, denied IPI was aware of the Epstein-related donations or the personal loan to Larsen until media reports in the veteran diplomat's home country of Norway. I don't buy it. Sorry. I don't buy it, Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd is no different than one of the politicians in America, in my opinion. If he was a real man, if he was really a great guy, like some people think he is, I think that he would have stood up and taken responsibility for this. He might not have taken the loan, but take responsibility for your part. Don't try and act like you don't know. Don't try and act like, oh, this is a big surprise to me. Stop it. And if it is, then you shouldn't be part of this board anyway. You shouldn't be part of this institution anyway if you have no say. What are you there for, a figurehead? Are you just being paid for introductions? What's the deal, Mr. Rudd? Look, he has some questions to answer, folks. That's all. Rudd said in a statement he was blindsided. Mr. Rod-Larsen has apologized to the board for what he described as his grave error of judgment, Rudd said. I am deeply disappointed that the board has had to learn about so much of this through the media. So Rod-Larsen is the scapegoat. Paul Rudd, that's funny. Kevin Rudd and his boys, they're throwing this dude right under the bus. Not that I care. He should be thrown under the bus, but the rest of them should go with him. What, he was the only guy making the decisions? Mr. Rudd and his team weren't making any decisions? Come on, I don't buy that. In a separate statement, the IPI board said Epstein's crimes were hideous. The notion that IPI would be in any way engaged with such an odious character is repugnant to the institution's core values. Well, by extension, people on your board were Jeffrey Epstein's friends and people getting money from him. So what does that say about the whole board? Perhaps you need to purge everybody that was on the board and start over. Earlier this month, the Norwegian Business Daily published a letter from Larsen to its board and supporters, a letter since confirmed to CNN, in which he writes, "Please accept my sincerest apologies for any distress or embarrassment this may have caused you. DN has reported that I took out a personal loan of $130 from Mr. Epstein in 2013. This loan had no connection to the activities or finances of IPI, and it was repaid in full as promised within the allotted time for my own personal accounts." Well, folks, first of all, we can be real safe because the arbiter of real and truth, CNN, says that they can confirm the letter. Yes, CNN, guess what? We didn't need you to confirm the letter, okay? You're garbage. We know you're garbage. And I would trust DN in Norway over you and your reporting any day of the week. CNN is a straight garbage ass outlet. And what's funny too here is if you look at it and you're reading in between the lines and you know the rest of the story like we do, well, this is the same shit that people like our good friend Leon Black says, right? Oh, well, I took the personal loan, but Apollo had nothing to do with it. Or Jeffrey Epstein he was advising me, but not Apollo. And that's what all of these people do. They try and add some plausible deniability for whatever organization that they're working with or board that they're on so that they take the blame and that board gets to continue on with their disgusting nonsense. Rudd said the media reports in November 2019 were the first notice of Epstein's involvement with the Institute. Then that's a problem. That's an institutional failure on your part. You have to have a better, more functioning institution. Okay? You work with the UN. You obviously have big money coming in, but you guys can't get your story together. You don't know who's donating money to you. It's just a joke. It's a joke that they think anyone would believe that. And if anyone does believe that, well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I hope that if you believe that narrative, I really hope that your CTE clears up pretty soon because it's obvious you're suffering from a head injury. Rudd said subsequent searches by IPI staff made at the request of the board have identified donations totaling $650,000 large that were received between October 2011 and May 2019, both after he was out of jail, folks, okay? Again, this was another way for him to massage his reputation. And this board, an extension of the UN, by the way, went along willingly. Sure, Jeffrey, give us our money. We'll let you use us as a vehicle to rebuild and refurbish your reputation so that you can once again begin your nonsense. It's are these people for real? Do they think that we're not paying attention to how they enabled all of this? This represented approximately 0.9% of IPI's total revenue over those years. The source of these donations had not previously been disclosed to the board nor to me as chair. So, plausible deniability is basically what he's shooting for here. And I think it's gross. I think it's a disgusting tactic. And if Mr. Rudd was a good guy, if Mr. Rudd wasn't a crooked politician, he'd stand up, he'd take the blame here, and he'd say, we're going to fix it. There has been no link established between Larsen and any of Epstein's criminal activities. However, the Institute is asking for an investigation. Is this where we play the scary music? No, an investigation. Another internal investigation, huh? Maybe they could just hire the same people that Leon Black has hired, and we can be done with it. I mean, for real. If you want an investigation, sure. Let the FBI investigate your books. How about that? Let's see how quickly you shut your mouth then. Let's see how quickly you backtrack then. The only reason they want to initiate these investigations is to try and clear their names via their own hired help. Pathetic behavior. In his letter, Larsen writes that IPI never paid any money or compensation of any kind to Jeffrey Epstein. This was a completely separate and personal matter. I recognize that it was a grave error in judgment on my part to engage in a personal financial relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and I regret it wholeheartedly. No, you only regret being caught and outed. If you regretted it, you would have come forward right away. If you regretted it, you would have never taken that money in the first place. The Institute said an amount equivalent to Epstein's donations will be given to programs that help victims of human trafficking and sexual assault. The board has named Adam Lupel, the IPI's current vice president and chief operating officer, as the Institute's acting president and CEO. Boy, so if that's the case, they should get in touch with the survivors' lawyers and see what the survivors think should be done with this money, what charities it should go to. Put them in the loop. Show them that you care. But that's not really the case, is it? They don't care. They care about their image. They want to refurbish their image the same way Jeffrey Epstein was trying to refurbish his. And that's what this is. This is the first push. This is the the testing push to see where things are, see what the slapback is. And then they'll go from there about how they want to go about this. Sure, one person steps down. Yeah, great. Woohoo. What about all of the other people that were involved? Rudd said he attended an international event including UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and other dignitaries in September 2013, where it was later determined Epstein was on the guest list, though it's not certain he attended. Look, 10 people on the guest list. Epstein has a chance to be around all of these politicians. I think it's a good bet, considering the profile we have established of Jeffrey Epstein, to say that he was at that meeting, okay? Pretty safe to say he was there. A very personal, intimate event where he has access to politicians. Yeah, pretty sure he was there with his pocketbook. Rudd said he does not remember meeting him, nor does he recall Epstein joining an advisory panel conference call in January 2014 designed to provide mining advice to Mongolia. Rudd doesn't know anything, folks. Sure sounds like the politicians in America. Sure sounds like a guy that really does know something, and certainly doesn't sound like a politician who isn't crooked. The IPI said it will commission a global accounting firm to audit its finances to make sure that all Epstein Foundation donations have been identified. Oh, I can't wait to see what austere body they bring in for this accounting. Oh, gosh. I mean, how many times can we roll our eyes reading one of these articles? Epstein was indicted on sex trafficking charges in New York in 2019 and found dead in his jail cell in Manhattan weeks later. Larsen is married to Mona Juul, Norway's ambassador to the United Nations. Initial efforts to contact Larsen have been unsuccessful. Yeah, he ain't saying shit. He's like, look, I stepped down and that's the end of it. Meanwhile, his wife is the ambassador from Norway to the UN. You see here, folks, especially in the UN, the corruption, the greed, the grifting, and the general spreading of misery when they're supposed to be doing the opposite. I encourage everybody to take a real deep look at the UN and what they're really about and what their charter really is and what their deal really is. Because every time they show up somewhere, shit goes even more south than it was. It's almost like the CIA, in my opinion. Anytime they show up, you can guarantee that a shit show will follow. Now, people like Terje Rod-Larsen and Mr. Rudd and the plethora of politicians around the world who are attempting to distance themselves from this story, from Jeffrey Epstein, without answering any questions, well, good luck. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode, including the PayPal link, can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I will be back later on with the Daily Drop. I hope you all enjoy your Sunday afternoon.